For its second generation, the Hyundai Kona Electric has gotten a bigger battery, a bigger exterior, and also a bigger interior. When it comes to the styling, it's brand new on the outside and on the inside. And in today's video, we're gonna answer the question, how far will the Kona Electric long range go on a full charge of battery? We're also gonna find out how it compares to its corporate cousin, the Kia Niro, and other electric cars in this segment. Believe it or not, guys, this is actually the first time I'm riding in or driving or testing a Hyundai Kona. I haven't driven the old model, and this is the very first time I am in the new model. But I wanted to test this car for a long time, and I've heard a lot of good things about the Kona in reviews and in videos, and finally I have one on loan. And that is mostly thanks to a viewer called Warren who asked me, hey, Chris, can you test the Hyundai Kona? And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So shout out to Warren for asking me, and if you guys want me to test something, let me know in the comment section down below. The next car that will get the most upvotes, I'll actually try to get booked so I can test it here on the channel. But so far, so good. I like this car, though at 120 kilometers an hour on the motorway, it is not the most silent. There are cars in this class that are quieter, but it's not too bad. This isn't a very expensive electric car, so I'm not expecting it to be, bank volt dead silent. But what is really good is the consumption after 53 kilometers or about 30 minutes on the road. Our average consumption is 20.3 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And for you guys who have, watched all of these or many of my range tests, know that in the beginning of the test, the consumption is always a little bit higher than down the road. But we do have a slight push in the northeast direction of 2 meters per second that is going to help us get that consumption low. So it remains to be seen what it is when we get to our halfway point and also get back to our starting point and we check out the results. Conditions today, pretty nice, 13, 14 degrees Celsius outside, dry roads, a little bit of sun, so a nice day to do a range test. We're now on our way back towards Oslo, entering the on-ramp southward on the E6 motorway. And so far, our average consumption is 20.4 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, 20.5 as we accelerate onto the motorway here. So that is pretty much what we had, at our last update. So it's going to be interesting to see if it's going to rise or if it's going to drop once we start moving southward back towards Oslo. Okay guys, we are now back here where we started this test a few hours ago. So we're exiting here and then we're immediately exiting to the Oslo station, and they have two charging locations here. So they have a few Elton-app chargers here with peak charging speeds of 225 kilowatts, and then they have those over there that can peak at 200 kilowatts, the Camp-Power satellites. I think I'm going to go over there because this car peaks at 100 kilowatts from its battery pack, so no need to go to those fast ones over there, and then I can go to the toilet, get something to drink. So it's going to be pretty easy to just roll in here to this charger. The port is on the front of this car, which is a strange location, but it's really practical. So let's disconnect the camera here from my from where it's mounted and check out the average consumption, which is 21.4 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And we are down to 18% state of charge. We started with 87%. To open up the charging port here in the front, you have to just push it like that. But what I found out is that you actually have to turn off the ignition. This is one of the very few cars, electric cars, that you actually have to turn on and off an ignition. And if you leave the car without turning off the ignition, it doesn't actually lock the doors, which in one way is nice. I'm kind of annoyed about electric cars today that turn off when you just hop out of the car because there's a sensor in the seat. I don't like that. But other cars, it doesn't turn off when you leave the car, but if you walk away from the car and you try to lock it, it actually locks and turns off. So there is like a middle ground here where you can have the best of both worlds. This doesn't do that, but still I may prefer this, though it does get a little bit getting used to having to remember to turn on and off the ignition. Turning on isn't a pretty big problem, but turning off may just, cause a little bit of an issue. So while the speed is ramping up here, I just want to thank today's video sponsor, Elton, which is an all-in-one charging app, which I've used to start this charger. Will let you charge at almost all charge point operators in Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark with one charging app and one payment method. It's super simple, super easy to use. So if you want to support the channel, go to the link down below and download the Elton charging app from there. So we are now up to 90 kilowatts without any preconditioning. We're just driving the car. I don't think this car even has any preconditioning like the EGMP cars on 800 volt architecture from Hyundai Kia. So we only have, ambient heating of the battery while driving it for a few hours. And we're getting 90 kilowatts at 19%, which I don't think is bad at all. That is pretty decent, though. The speed of 100 kilowatts being the peak charging speed, well, that could be higher. Now let's take a look at the results. So if we take the usable battery capacity of this car, the Kona electric long range, which is 65.4 kilowatt hours, we divide it by the consumption, 21.4 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and then subtract 3% in heat loss. That gives us a theoretical range under today's conditions of 296 kilometers, which on the surface doesn't seem too bad, getting almost 300 kilometers of real-world range, going 120 kilometers an hour or 75 miles per hour. I don't think that is too bad, but when you compare to the WLTP rated range of this car, which is 473 kilometers, we're only hitting about 62.6% of that. And when you look at it that way, I don't think it is great. And also another comparison we can do is compared to the Volvo EX30 twin performance I tested a few months back. That car here on the channel got a lot of criticism for not being efficient, for being inefficient, considering it is a small car. And yes, that is a shorter car than this, but the overall shape is pretty much the same. And that is also a dual motor version with, a lot more performance than this, twice the horsepower compared to this car. So it's in a completely different league, and it's also a much more quiet and comfortable car to drive. But if we look at the consumption of that car, which was done in much colder conditions, that hit 23.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Today it was between 9 and 16 degrees Celsius, though that low of 9 degrees Celsius was only for about 10 minutes. Most of the trip today was done under 12 to 14 degrees Celsius with dry roads. Yes, we did have a shower of about 10-15 minutes, but for the most of the trip, it was dry and between 12 and 14 degrees Celsius. So I think if we ran the Volvo under similar conditions, it would get the same consumption as this, maybe even a little bit lower. And that is then closer to his WLTP rated range in percentage. So when we do the comparisons and we look at these different cars side by side and compare them, I don't think this car is any more efficient than the Volvo EX30, just to get that out of the way, because I know that car did get a lot of criticism. But either way, I think getting almost 300 kilometers out of this car on a motorway, I don't think it's too bad. I think it's actually pretty decent for being this type of vehicle. The thing that may constrain this car, when I take it on my long trip test, which will be the next video, is the charging speed. Looking at the charger over there, or looking at the screen here, at 55% state of charge, we're getting 97 kilowatts, which is pretty close to that peak. But other cars in this class do get faster charging. So guys, let me know what you think down below of the results of the Kona electric long range. Do you think it did good? Do you think it did bad? I'm interested to know down below. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later and goodbye.